Some mornings, you wake up and something just feels off. A quietness in your chest, a knowing that you try to push away because you don't want to believe what your gut is already telling you. That morning at the lake, the last Saturday of September, I woke up with that feeling. My name is Nadia. I was 34 years old, 7 years married to a man named Daniel. A man I had loved with every quiet and loud piece of myself. We had built something beautiful together. Or so I thought. A home in the city, a lake house in the hills that I had inherited from my grandmother, a place I loved more than almost anywhere on earth, and a life that looked, from the outside, like something to envy. But love has a way of making you blind to the cracks. And by the time I started to see them, the late nights, the silences, the way he looked at his phone like it held something precious, I had already been living inside a lie for longer than I knew. It started small. A name I didn't recognize on his phone screen. A receipt for a restaurant we had never been to together.
Priya came to my house that same afternoon. We sat at my kitchen table with 2 cups of tea that neither of us touched, and we laid out everything we knew, like 2 detectives piecing together a case we never asked to be part of. The weekends, the excuses, the identical gaps in their stories. Rohan had been telling Priya he was away for work. Daniel had been telling me he was visiting his college friend, Marcus, a friend who I now discovered had moved abroad 2 years ago. 2 husbands, 2 women sitting at home believing them, and somewhere along the way, both of them had found each other in the middle of our trust. I remember staring at the window and thinking, how many times had I waved Daniel goodbye from that door, wished him a safe drive, and gone back inside to water my plants and cook dinner and wait? How many times had he driven away from me and towards her? It hollowed me out in a way I don't have words for. Not anger, not yet. Something deeper, a quiet, devastating grief. Priya and I cried together that afternoon. 2 strangers, bound by the worst kind of shared experience. And somewhere between the tears and the silence, we made a decision. We were not going to fall apart. We were going to be ready. I had noticed something on Daniel's calendar, a note about a weekend trip to the lake house, 2 Saturdays away. He had told me he was going with Marcus. I had smiled and said, have fun. But now, I knew exactly what that trip meant. And so did Priya. We planned quietly, carefully. The week before, I drove up to the lake house alone, and I waited. I brought everything I needed. The documents, the evidence Priya and I had gathered, the photographs, the messages. I sat in that house that my grandmother had built with her own hands, in the rooms where I had spent childhood summers, in the place that Daniel had turned into something dirty without my knowing. And I let myself feel all of it. The grief, the rage, the sorrow. And then I put it somewhere deep and I got quiet. Because I didn't want to shout. I didn't want to scream. I wanted something far more powerful than that. I wanted them to...
The door opened slowly. I heard Daniel's voice first, relaxed, laughing at something, and then the sound of footsteps. 2 pairs. We were sitting at the dining table, Priya and I, side by side, hands folded, 2 cups of tea in front of us. The evidence, printed, organized, quiet, sitting in a folder between us. The laughing stopped. I have replayed that moment in my mind 1,000 times. The way Daniel's face went from shock to confusion to something like shame. The way Rohan took 1 step back, as if he could simply walk out of what he had walked into. The way neither of them said a single word for what felt like a very long time. And then I spoke. Not loudly, not with tears. Just clearly. Sit down, both of you. They sat. I don't need to tell you everything that was said in that room. Some things are private, even in their ugliness. But I will tell you this. There were no more lies that day. The stories collapsed one by one. The excuses crumbled. And when it was all done, when every truth had been laid bare on that table, like evidence in a courtroom, Priya and I stood up. And we left them there. Two men sitting in a lake house that neither of them deserved, surrounded by the wreckage of everything they had broken. I want to tell you something. If you're watching this and you're sitting in the middle of a pain like mine, the moment I walked out of that lake house, really walked out, with my head up and my hands steady, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. I felt like myself again. Not because revenge made it better, not because watching them squirm healed anything overnight, but because I had refused to be small. Because Priya and I had chosen dignity